The notification on my screen looked standard until I saw the name. Gordon Walker. My father. The man who once told me I would never be a real lawyer without his pedigree. Now, the senior partner of Hollis & Crown wasn't offering a truce. He was submitting an employment application to my 3-person firm. His cover letter ended with a line that hit me harder than any insult. I am willing to learn your way of practicing law. The radiator in the corner of my office rattled with a sound like loose change in a dryer. A constant, mechanical cough that I had stopped hearing 3 years ago. It was the sound of independence. It was the sound of paying my own rent, buying my own printer paper, and realizing that the law did not live in mahogany boardrooms, but in the messy, desperate trenches of human error. My name is Lucy Walker. I am 33 years old. And as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, I was the attorney of record on the largest employment settlement in the history of Walker Legal Collective. Avery Sloan, my office manager and the person who effectively kept my life from dissolving into chaos, placed a bottle of champagne on my desk. It was warm. We did not have a dedicated office fridge, just a small cube beneath the break room sink that was currently housing 3 yogurts and a bag of ice for my lower back. "We did it," Avery said. She leaned against the door frame, her arms crossed. Her posture was not celebratory. It was relieved. The check cleared escrow 10 minutes ago. I stared at the settlement agreement on my screen. The number was large enough to cover our overhead for 6 months, but the number was not the victory. The victory was the signature at the bottom of the opposing counsel block. Hollis & Crown, LLP. For 50 years. Hollis & Crown had been the gravity that held the legal world of Harrogate. Massachusetts. In place. They were the skyline. They were the legacy. They were the firm that represented the banks, the pharmaceutical giants, and the old money families who treated zoning laws like suggestions. They did not settle with scrappy 3-person firms located above a dry cleaner. They crushed them. They buried them in paper until the oxygen ran out. But today, they had blinked. I rubbed my eyes. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a dull throb behind my temples. "Do not look so terrified." "Lucy," Avery said, "you won. I am not terrified." I said, "I am waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know how they operate. They do not lose. They just regroup." Avery walked over and tapped the bottle. "Then let them regroup. Tonight, we drink warm champagne out of coffee mugs. Mara is already looking for the glasses." Mara Kent was my associate. She was 27, brilliant, and possessed a level of cynicism that usually took decades to acquire. She walked in a moment later, holding 3 mugs that said, "World's Okayest Lawyer." It was a joke gift from a client 2 years ago, and we treated them like fine crystal. "To the Dragon Slayers," Mara said, raising her mug. We clinked the ceramic together. The champagne tasted like apples and victory. We stood there for a moment, the 3 of us, breathing in the rare air of a win that actually felt like a win. Usually, my cases ended in quiet compromises. I represented whistleblowers, fired executives, and people who had seen things they were not supposed to see. My job was to get them enough money to start over before the corporations they worked for destroyed their reputations. It was ugly, quiet work, but this time, we had made noise. I turned back to my computer to close the file. The screen flickered. A notification banner slid across the top right corner. It was from our hiring portal. We had posted a job listing 3 months ago for a senior paralegal, but we had forgotten to take it down. The applications had slowed to a trickle of law students looking for summer internships. "Who is applying at 5 on a Friday?" Mara asked. Looking over my shoulder. "Probably a bot," I said, "or someone desperate." I clicked the notification. The screen refreshed. My breath caught in my throat. It was a physical sensation, like swallowing a cube of ice whole. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. The name on the application was Gordon Walker. I sat very still. The rattle of the radiator seemed to roar. "Lucy?" Avery asked. Her voice sounded far away. "What is it?" I could not speak. I could only stare at the name. Gordon Walker, current position, senior partner, Hollis and Crown, education, Harvard Law, 1982. It had to be a joke. It had to be a cruel, targeted prank from someone at his firm who was angry about the settlement. A way to mock me. Look, the little girl thinks she is a real lawyer now. I opened the cover letter. The formatting was impeccable. Times New Roman, 12-point. The margins were razor sharp. The tone was professional, detached, and surgically precise. It detailed 30 years of complex litigation experience. It listed victories that were legendary in the state of Massachusetts. It did not mention that he was my father. It did not mention that we had not spoken in 4 years. I scrolled to the bottom, my hand shaking so badly the mouse cursor jittered across the screen. The final sentence stood alone. I am willing to learn your way of practicing law. I shoved my chair back. The wheels screeched against the hardwood floor. What happened? Mara asked, stepping back. I stood up and walked to the window. Harrogate looked gray and tired below. The brick buildings were stained with decades of industrial soot. Across the river, the glass spire of the Hollis and Crown building caught the last of the afternoon sun, burning like a torch. My father applied for a job. I said, Avery laughed once. A short, sharp sound. What? I pointed at the screen without turning around. Read it. I heard the click of the mouse, then silence. A long, heavy silence that sucked the air out of the room. This is insane, Mara whispered. This is Gordon Walker. The Gordon Walker. He is the head of the litigation department at the firm we just beat. Why would he apply here? Is this a joke? It is not a joke, I said. He does not tell jokes. I closed my eyes. The memory hit me, not like a flashback in a movie, but like a dull ache in a broken bone when it rains. I was 22. I had just been accepted to law school. I was sitting at the long mahogany table in his dining room, the one that seated 12 people even though it was just the two of us. He was cutting a steak. He did not look up when I told him the news. It is a nice performance. Lucy, he had said. What do you mean? I had asked. This idea that you can do this work. It is theatrical. You have empathy, which is a fine quality for a nurse or a teacher. But the law is not about empathy. It is about architecture. You have to build structures that can withstand pressure. You are too soft. You will never be a real lawyer. You will be a social worker with a Juris Doctor. I am going to be a litigator, I had said, my voice trembling. He had finally looked up then. His eyes were blue and flat, like winter sky. Then you will get crushed, and I will not be there to pick up the pieces. I refuse to help you ruin your life. I opened my eyes. The gray street below came back into focus. He once told me I would never be real. I said to the window, he said I did not have the pedigree. He said I did not have the steel. He is mocking you. Mara said. Her voice was hard. She was protective of me, in the way a soldier is protective of their captain. This is a power move. He is trying to rattle you because you won today. Avery was scrolling through the application. I do not know, she said slowly. This does not read like mockery. It reads like a resume, a very overqualified resume. I turned around. Why? Why would he do this? Maybe he's spying, Mara said. Maybe they want to see how we beat them. Maybe they want to find something to use for an appeal. He does not need to apply for a job to destroy me. I said, he could just make a phone call. He knows every judge in the county. He knows the bar overseers. If he wanted to hurt me, he would do it from his office. Then what is this? Avery asked. I walked back to the desk and looked at the screen again. I am willing to learn your way of practicing law. It felt like a slap. It felt like a challenge. I do not know, I said, but I'm not going to let him ruin this day. I reached for the mouse to delete the email. My finger hovered over the button. Do not delete it, Avery said sharply. I looked at her. If you delete it, you are reacting, she said. You are letting him win. If this is real, you have to treat it like a real application. If it is a game, you have to show him you are not playing. I took a deep breath. She was right. Avery was always right. That was why I paid her more than I paid myself. Leave it, I said. We will deal with it on Monday. I grabbed my coat. I needed air. I needed to be anywhere but in this room with his name glowing on my screen. I am going home, I said. Good work today, really. I walked out of the office, down the 3 flights of stairs, and into the cool October air. But as I walked to the subway, I could feel the email sitting in my inbox like a bomb waiting to detonate. My apartment was small, clean, and quiet. It was my sanctuary. But tonight, it felt too empty. I sat on my couch and stared at my phone. I needed to talk to someone who knew him, someone who knew the monster beneath the suit. I dialed my mother. Evelyn Walker lived in Larkspur Ridge, Vermont, in a house filled with plants and pottery she made herself. She had left Gordon 10 years ago, quietly and without a single demand for alimony. She just wanted out. She answered on the second ring. Lucy, she said. Her voice was warm, grounded. I was just thinking about you. I won the settlement against Hollis and Crown. I said, Oh, honey, that is wonderful. I knew you would. There is something else. I said. The line went quiet. She knew my tone. She knew the difference between tired Lucy and afraid Lucy. What is it? She asked. He applied for a job at my firm today. There was a long pause. I could hear the wind chimes on her porch in the background. Gordon? She asked. Yes. He submitted a formal application through the portal. Cover letter, resume, everything. He is still a senior partner there. She said. I saw his name in the paper last week. I know. I said, that is why it makes no sense. Is he sick? Is he having a breakdown? No, she said slowly. He is not sick. He is calculated. He never does anything without a reason. Lucy, you know that. Do you think he is trying to sabotage me? I asked. Evelyn sighed. It was a heavy, weary sound. I do not know what he is doing, she said. But I still talk to some of the wives from the firm. Not often, but enough. Something is happening at Hollis and Crown. What kind of something? The quiet kind. The kind where people stop looking you in the eye at dinner parties. The kind where partners start taking early retirement. I gripped the phone tighter. Is he in trouble? Lucy, she said, and her voice dropped an octave. Stay away from him, whatever is happening. It is big enough to make Gordon Walker apply to a firm he used to laugh at. That makes him dangerous. I know. I said, I just needed to hear you say it. Protect yourself, she said. He is your father, but he is a lawyer first, always. I hung up. I sat in the dark for a long time. He is a lawyer first. I remembered the day I passed the bar exam. I had called him, desperate for approval. Just once. He had said, Congratulations. Now the work begins. Do not embarrass the name. I had spent my entire career trying to be the opposite of him. I represented the little guy. I took cases on contingency. I cared about my clients. And yet, here he was, trying to walk through my front door. The next evening was the Harrogate Bar Association Fall Mixer. Usually. I avoided these events. They were filled with attorneys measuring each other's worth by the cost of their watches. But Avery insisted I go. She said we needed to show our faces after the settlement. Victory laps are part of the business, she had said. The event was held in the ballroom of the Grand Hotel. It smelled of expensive cologne and desperation. I stood near the bar with a glass of club soda, watching the room. Usually, I was invisible at these things. I was the girl with the storefront firm, the one who picked up the scraps the big firms dropped. But tonight was different. I felt eyes on me. A partner from Varick Hale, a massive corporate defense firm, nodded at me as he walked by. He had never acknowledged my existence before. 2 associates from a boutique tax firm whispered to each other and looked in my direction. It was the settlement. They knew. News traveled fast in Harrogate. I had bloodied the nose of the giant. I tried to look confident. I tried to look like I belonged. But my skin crawled. Excuse me, a voice said. I turned. A man was standing there. He was tall, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. He held a drink with a napkin wrapped around the bottom. Lucy Walker? He asked. Yes, I said. I am David Thorne, Bramwell Risk Advisory. I shook his hand. It was dry and cool. Bramwell was a consulting firm that cleaned up corporate messes. They were the people you called before you called the lawyers. I heard about the Hollis settlement. He said, "Impressive work. Very surgical. Thank you." I said, "We were happy with the outcome." He took a sip of his drink. His eyes scanned the room, then landed back on me. "You know, we are always looking for outside counsel who understand discretion. Bramwell has a lot of overflow." "Are you asking if I am hiring?" I asked, confused, "or if I am looking for work?" He smiled. It did not reach his eyes. "I am asking if you are expanding. A firm that can beat Gordon Walker is a firm that is going to attract a lot of attention. Some of it good, some of it complicated." I stiffened. "What does that mean?" "It means the landscape is shifting. Ms. Walker, people are watching you. Just be careful who you let into the circle." He nodded once and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I stood there, my heart hammering. Be careful who you let into the circle. Did he know? Did he know about the application? I felt suddenly exposed. The ballroom felt like a cage. I set my drink down and pushed my way through the crowd. I needed to get out. My phone buzzed in my purse. I checked it as I walked into the lobby. It was a voicemail. Unknown number. I stepped into a quiet corner near the coat check and raised the phone to my ear. "Ms. Walker." A woman's voice whispered. She sounded terrified. "My name is Sarah Jenkins. I am a compliance officer at North Pine Biologics. I have information about the dumping protocols. They are hiding it. I cannot email you. I cannot use my work phone. I need to see you. Tonight. Please. They are going to hurt people." The message ended. North Pine Biologics. They were a massive pharmaceutical manufacturer just outside the city, and they were represented by Hollis and Crown. My stomach twisted. A whistleblower from a Hollis client, calling me. On the day my father applied to my firm, this was not a coincidence. This was a setup, or a test, or something much worse. I called the number back. It went straight to voicemail. I stood in the lobby of the Grand Hotel, the chandelier glittering above me like jagged teeth. I had two choices. I could run, I could delete the application, ignore the whistleblower, and go back to being the invisible lawyer in the small office, or I could find out the truth. I went back to the office. It was 10 o'clock at night. The building was empty. I sat at my desk and pulled up the application again. I needed to see the writing sample. I had been too afraid to look at it before, but now, I needed to know who I was dealing with. Was this the brilliant legal mind I had feared my entire life? Or was this a man losing his grip? I clicked the attachment. It was a PDF titled Walker_writing_sample.pdf. I expected a brief, a motion for summary judgment, a complex analysis of contract law. The document opened. I read the first paragraph. Then I stopped breathing. The law is a mirror. It reflects exactly what we put in front of it. If we present it with lies, it will show us a distorted truth. If we present it with pain, it will show us tragedy. But if we present it with nothing, it will show us the void. I knew these words. I knew the cadence. I knew the rhythm. I knew the specific ache that lived between the sentences. This was not Gordon Walker's writing. This was mine. It was an essay I had written 7 years ago, during a fellowship application that I never submitted. I had printed it out once, left it on the kitchen counter at my parents' house during a brief, disastrous Thanksgiving visit, and then thrown the digital file away because I thought it was too sentimental, too soft. He had kept it. He had scanned it. And now, he was submitting it back to me as his writing sample. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and sudden. Why? Was he mocking me? Look, I found your little diary entry. No, that is not what this was. I am willing to learn your way of practicing law. He was using my words to show me that he knew who I was. He was using my words to tell me that he was not coming as the expert. He was coming as the student. But it was also a violation. He had stolen my voice. He had taken something private and turned it into a transaction. I stared at the screen until the text blurred. This was a trap. I knew it in my bones. The whistleblower, the application, the warning from the stranger at the bar. It was all connected. Hollis and Crown was a sinking ship, and my father was trying to jump onto my life raft. But I was not the girl at the dining room table anymore. I was not the daughter seeking approval. I was the managing partner of Walker Legal Collective, and I had a firm to protect. I opened my calendar. I checked my availability for Monday morning. I hit reply on the email. Dear Mr. Walker, thank you for your interest in Walker Legal Collective. We would like to schedule an interview to discuss your application. Please arrive at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. Sincerely, Lucy Walker. I did not sign it. Love, Lucy. I did not ask Dad, what are you doing? I treated him exactly like what he was, an applicant, a liability, and a man who had underestimated me for the last time. I sent the email. Then I printed the writing sample, folded it, and put it in my safe. If he wanted to play a game, I would play, but I would play by my rules. The radiator rattled in the corner. A steady, mechanical heartbeat. I listened to it for a long time, alone in the dark, wondering if I had just invited the devil into my house, or if I had just agreed to save him. I would find out on Monday, not with a bang, but with a calendar invite. And in the silence of my office, I realized that for the first time in my life, I was not afraid of him. I was curious. And that was a much more dangerous thing to be. 9 o'clock on a Monday morning in Harrogate felt less like the start of a work week and more like the onset of a siege. The sky was the color of wet concrete, pressing down on the skyline, and the radiator in our conference room was hissing with a violent, rhythmic spit that usually required a kick to silence. Today, I let it hiss. It was the only noise filling the silence between me and the man sitting across the table. Gordon Walker sat in the chair usually reserved for nervous whistleblowers and weeping executives. He did not look nervous. He looked inevitable. He wore a suit that I recognized from photographs in the legal journal, The Gavel, charcoal gray, bespoke, cut to hide the slight thickening of his waist that came with 60 years of life. His tie was a deep, bloodless crimson. His hands were folded on the table, resting on top of a leather portfolio that probably cost more than my entire office furniture budget. Good morning. Lucy, he said. His voice was exactly as I remembered it. Resonant, baritone, the kind of voice that made juries lean forward and witnesses flinch. It was a voice designed for courtrooms, not for a cramped conference room with a water stain on the ceiling shaped like Florida. Good morning, Mr. Walker, I said. I saw a flicker in his eyes. The formality stung him. Good. I opened the folder in front of me. It contained his printed application. I did not look at him. I looked at the paper. I treated him like a stranger. I treated him like a problem I had to solve. You have 30 years of experience at Hollis & Crown, I said, keeping my tone flat. You are the chair of their litigation department. You billed 3,000 hours last year. Your win rate is 92%. 94, he corrected. The last 2 victories have not been updated on the website yet. I looked up. Why are you here? I asked. And do not tell me you are looking for a new challenge. Men like you do not look for challenges. You look for conquests. Gordon unclasped his hands. He reached for the glass of water I had placed in the center of the table. It was a small movement, a simple extension of the arm. But as his fingers closed around the glass, I saw it, a tremor, just for a second. The water rippled. The ice clinked against the side of the glass with a tiny, betraying chime. He steadied it instantly. He brought the glass to his lips, took a sip, and set it down without a sound. But I had seen it. My father was afraid. I felt a sudden, sharp nausea. I hated that I noticed it. I hated that my first instinct was to ask if he was okay. I crushed that instinct down until it was nothing but cold ash. The firm is not what it pretends to be. Gordon said, That is not an answer. I said, Every firm is not what it pretends to be. We pretend to be confident when we are terrified. We pretend to be solvent when we are broke. What is specific about Hollis and Crown? He looked at the water glass, then back at me. The culture has shifted, he said. It used to be about winning. Now it is about maintenance, containing problems rather than solving them. I am tired of being a janitor for billionaires. Lucy. I leaned back in my chair. So you want to come here? To a firm that represents the people you have spent 30 years crushing? I can bring value, he said. He shifted into pitch mode. It was automatic, the salesman emerging from the father. I have clients who are loyal to me, not the firm. I have connections with the judiciary that you do not have. I know how the other side thinks because I built the other side. I can make Walker Legal Collective a major player in 6 months. My stomach turned. He sat there, listing his assets like he was selling a used car. He thought this was what mattered. Clients, connections, the game. He did not understand that the reason I built this firm was to escape exactly this kind of calculation. I do not want your clients if they are the kind of people who hire Hollis and Crown. I said, and I do not care about being a major player. I care about the work. He smiled. It was a thin, patronizing expression that made my skin crawl. Everyone cares about the work until the rent is due, he said. You are doing well. Lucy, that settlement last week was impressive, but one win does not make a career. It makes a target. You need armor. I am offering you armor. I looked down at the application again. I flipped to the last page. The writing sample. I pulled the page out and slid it across the table toward him. Let us talk about this, I said. He looked down at the essay. He did not flinch. You stole this, I said. I did not steal it, he said. You left it in my house. It was personal. I said, it was not for public consumption. And it certainly was not yours to use as a writing sample. Why did you use it? I asked. My voice rose. Just a fraction. Why use my words? Are you mocking me? Gordon looked at the paper. He traced the edge of the paragraph with his thumb. No, he said. Then what? I demanded. You have written hundreds of briefs. You have been published in law reviews. Why this? He looked up. His blue eyes were suddenly very tired, because it is the only thing in this application that proves you were always better than me. He said. The room went silent. The radiator hissed. I stared at him. I waited for the punchline. I waited for the twist. You were better at feeling, but not at thinking. You were better at writing, but not at winning. But the twist did not come. He just held my gaze. I felt a crack in my chest, a dangerous, jagged opening where hope started to leak in. He had never complimented me. Not once. Not when I graduated. Not when I passed the bar. Then I looked at his hands again. They were steady now, too steady. He was manipulating me. He knew exactly where to hit. He knew I had spent my life starving for that sentence, and he had just fed it to me in a job interview. It is a nice line. Gordon, I said, making my voice hard. Did you rehearse it in the car? He did not react. I am not hiring a partner. I said, I am not hiring a savior. If you want to work here, you go through the process. We are doing background checks. We are calling references. Do what you have to do, he said. I stood up. The interview is over. He stood up as well. He buttoned his jacket. I will wait to hear from you, he said. He walked out. The air in the room felt thinner after he left. I sat back down and put my head in my hands. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I walked out to the main office. Mara was at her desk, typing furiously. Avery was on the phone, her voice low and soothing. Well? Mara asked, spinning her chair around. Did he confess? Is he wearing a wire? He is terrifyingly calm, I said, and his hands are shaking. Mara frowned. Parkinson's? No, I said. Fear. I sat on the edge of her desk. Run him, I said. Deep dive. I want to know everything that has happened to him in the last 6 months. Check the court dockets. Check the property records. Something is wrong. Already on it. Mara said, and Lucy? You need to see this. She turned her monitor toward me. It was the Hollis and Crown website. She was on the partners page. I scrolled down. Managing partners, senior partners, junior partners. Gordon Walker was not there. He was not just moved to of counsel. He was not listed as retired. He was gone, erased. I checked the cached version from last week. Mara said. He was right there, top of the list. Senior litigation partner. I stared at the empty space where his face used to be. They scrubbed him. I whispered, "No press release?" I asked. "Nothing," Mara said. "No announcement in the legal journal, no farewell and best wishes email blast. Just a soft deletion. That means scandal." I said, "Firms like that do not erase a 30-year partner unless they are trying to bury something radioactive." Avery hung up the phone and looked at us. "If they are burying him," she said, "why is he trying to dig himself out in our office?" "Because he needs a shield," I said. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Walker?" It was our receptionist, who was actually just an iPad mounted on the wall near the door. "There is a Sarah Jenkins here to see you. She says she has an appointment." I looked at the time. It was 11 o'clock. "Send her in." I said. Sarah Jenkins looked like she had not slept in a week. She was wearing a beige trench coat belted too tightly and clutching a purse like it contained a bomb. Her eyes darted around my small waiting area. Cataloging the exits. "Ms. Jenkins?" I said, extending a hand. "I am Lucy Walker." She did not shake my hand. She looked at Mara, then at Avery. "Are they safe?" she asked. "They are my team." I said, "Anything you say to me is privileged. They are covered by the circle of confidentiality." She nodded, jerky and quick. "Come into my office." We sat down. She did not take off her coat. "I should not be here," she said. Her voice was a whisper. "They track my car." I parked 6 blocks away and walked. "Who is they?" I asked. "North Pine?" She nodded. "I am a compliance officer," she said. "My job is to ensure we follow FDA regulations regarding waste disposal, biological waste." "And you found something?" "I found that the reports we send to the EPA are fiction," she said. "We are dumping untreated runoff into the Harrogate Reservoir. We have been doing it for 3 years." I froze. The reservoir supplied water to half the county. "Do you have proof?" I asked. She reached into her coat pocket. She pulled out a silver flash drive. She slid it across the desk. It made a scraping sound on the wood. "It is all there," she said. "Emails, lab reports, the real ones, not the ones we send to the government." I reached for the drive. "Why come to me?" I asked. "Why not the EPA? Why not the police?" She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Because I tried to go to the general counsel." She said, "I tried to fix it internally. And 2 days later, a man came to my house. He told me that if I spoke to anyone, my history of psychiatric treatment would become public record. He said I would lose my children." "Who was the man?" I asked. "I do not know his name." She said, "But he works for the law firm, the big one, Hollis and Crown." My blood ran cold. "They represent North Pine," she said. "They handle the containment." She stood up abruptly. "I have to go. If I'm gone too long, they will know." "Wait," I said. "We need to formalize this. I need to get a retainer agreement." "No paper," she said. "Not yet. Just look at the drive." She walked to the door. Then she stopped and turned back. "They will come to you," she said. "Through him." "Through who?" I asked. She did not answer. She opened the door and ran out. I sat there, staring at the silver flash drive. "They will come to you through him." My phone buzzed on the desk. I looked at the screen. Blocked caller. I let it ring. It stopped. It buzzed again immediately. Blocked caller. I picked it up. "This is Lucy Walker." There was silence on the line. Then a click, then a dial tone. I put the phone down. My hand was shaking. Mara walked in. "Who was that?" "I do not know," I said. I picked up the flash drive. "Don't plug that into the network," Mara said sharply. "I know." I said, "Do we have the air-gapped laptop? The old one we keep for malware analysis?" "Yes. Bring it here." We spent the next hour going through the files. It was worse than Sarah had said. It was systematic poisoning, and the emails showed that Hollis and Crown knew. There were opinion letters signed by senior partners advising North Pine on how to structure the data to avoid detection, but Gordon's name was not on them. The emails were signed by Trevor Sennett, the man who was now the lead litigator. My office phone rang. I jumped. It is the bank. Avery called out from her desk. Mr. Henderson. I picked up. Mr. Henderson was our loan officer at Harrogate Merchant Bank. He was a kind, elderly man who always asked about my mother. Hello? Jim, I said, trying to sound cheerful. Lucy, he said. His voice was tight. I am afraid I have some bad news. My chest tightened. What is it? Your line of credit, he said. The renewal. It has been flagged. Flagged? I asked. We have never missed a payment. Our revenue is up. We just deposited a huge settlement check. I know, he said. I know. Lucy, but the risk committee, they received some information. What information? Concerns about the stability of the firm, he said. Potential litigation against the partnership. Ethical exposure. That is ridiculous. I said, who told them that? I cannot say, he said. But Lucy, it came from a credible source, a high-level source in the legal community. I closed my eyes. Gordon, or someone trying to look like Gordon. I am sorry, Jim said. Until this is cleared up. The line is frozen. He hung up. I sat there, listening to the silence. No credit line meant we could not pay the experts for the next case. It meant we were vulnerable. Someone was squeezing us. And then, as if on cue, he walked back in. Gordon did not knock. He just walked past Avery and stood in my doorway. I hear you have a cash flow problem, he said. I looked up at him. I wanted to throw the stapler at his head. Did you do this? I asked. Did you call the bank? No, he said, but I know who did. Who? It does not matter, he said. What matters is that you are bleeding, and I have a tourniquet. He walked in and sat down. I have a proposition, he said, not a job application. A merger, I laughed. A bitter, sharp sound. You want to merge my firm with what? You are unemployed. Not with me, he said. With a new entity. I have an investor, a quiet one. They are willing to fund a new boutique firm, Walker & Walker. We combine your reputation for integrity with my experience and connections. We capitalize at $5 million. The credit line problem goes away today. I stared at him. You want to buy me? I said, I want to save you. He said, you think I cannot survive without you? I said, you think I am still the girl who needs her daddy to pay the tuition? I think you are about to be hit by a train, he said, and I'm trying to push you off the tracks. Get out, I said. Gordon looked at me. Then he smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was a smirk. The kind of smile a chess player gives when you move your knight exactly where he wanted it. I expected you to say that, he said. He stood up. Think about it. Lucy, the offer stands for 24 hours. He left. I felt like I had been punched. He expected me to refuse, which meant the refusal was part of the plan. Avery walked in. She was holding a large manila envelope. This just came by courier, she said. No return address. I took it. I ripped it open. It was a stack of photocopies. They were emails, internal emails from Hollis and Crown. I started reading. From T. Senate. To Executive Committee. Subject, the Walker problem. Don't worry about the settlement. It's a rounding error. The daughter is manageable. She's temporary. A useful demonstration that we're not threatened by small-time players. Let her have the win. It keeps her quiet while we finish the restructure. I read the next one. She is not a real threat. She is a visibly emotional operator. We can tilt her whenever we need to. I felt the heat rising in my face. Manageable, temporary, visibly emotional. They were not afraid of me. They were using me. My victory was not a victory. It was a calculated loss on their balance sheet. I looked at the date on the emails. They were from last week. Who sent these? Mara asked, looking over my shoulder. Gordon, I said, or someone who wants me to hate Gordon's firm enough to join him. I stood up. I need to go. I said, "Where?" "Vermont." I drove north. The city faded into suburbs, and the suburbs faded into the red and gold of autumn in New England. I needed to see the one person who had escaped Gordon Walker alive. My mother was in her garden, wrapping burlap around her rose bushes for the winter. She stood up when she saw me. She wiped her hands on her apron. "You look like you have seen a ghost," she said. "I have seen worse." I said, "I have seen my father." We sat on her back porch, drinking tea that tasted like mint and dirt. I told her everything: the interview, the shaking hand, the bank, the emails. She listened, looking out at the mountains. "He is trapped," she said finally. "What do you mean?" "Gordon does not ask for help. Lucy, if he is coming to you, it is because he has nowhere else to go. He is burning his bridges to light his way to your door." "But why me?" I asked. "He thinks I'm a joke. He told me I would never be a real lawyer." Evelyn turned to me. Her eyes were sad. "He told you that to stop you," she said. "I know. Because he is cruel." "No," she said. "Because he knew what the law does to people. He wanted you to be happy. He has a terrible way of showing love. It looks like control." She took a sip of tea. "There is something I never told you," she said. I braced myself. "What?" "When you applied for the bar exam," she said, "you remember your character and fitness review took 4 months longer than everyone else's?" "Yes," I said. "They said they lost my paperwork. They did not lose it." She said, "Gordon called a friend on the committee. He asked them to take a closer look, to find a reason to delay you." I stared at her. The wind chimed softly above us. "He tried to fail me?" I whispered. "He tried to make you quit," she said. "He thought if it was hard enough, you would give up and do something else, something safer." I felt a cold, hard rage settle in my stomach. "He sabotaged me." I said, "Before I even started." "He did." She said, "And when you passed anyway. When you started your firm, he was proud, and he was terrified, because he knew he couldn't protect you anymore." I stood up. "He is not trying to protect me now." I said, "He is trying to use me." "Maybe," Evelyn said, "or maybe he is trying to save you from the thing that is eating him alive." I drove back to Harrogate in the dark. The road was empty. My father had tried to kill my career in the cradle, and now he wanted to merge with it. He was a manipulator. He was a liar. He was a saboteur. But he was also the only person who knew where the bodies were buried at Hollis and Crown. And if North Pine Biologics was poisoning the water, and his old firm was covering it up, I needed him. I needed his knowledge. I needed his map of the minefield. I walked into my office at 6 in the morning. I drafted a contract. It was brutal. Contract for services. Term, 30 days. Role, consultant. Access, restricted. No equity. No client contact without supervision. No financial authority. It was a leash. I emailed it to him. I stared at the screen. I was doing it. I was letting him in. I was betraying the 22-year-old girl who cried at the dining room table. I was betraying the young woman who waited 4 extra months for her bar license, wondering what she had done wrong. But I was a lawyer, and a lawyer does not act on emotion. A lawyer acts on evidence. I needed the evidence he had in his head. My phone buzzed. A text from Gordon. I accept. I looked at the words. I had invited the fox into the henhouse because I needed him to catch the wolves. But as I watched the sun come up over the gritty Harrogate skyline, I wondered if I would survive the month. The radiator kicked on with a bang. Startling me, it sounded like a gunshot. Tuesday morning began with the squeak of a chair that was not designed to hold a man who billed $800 an hour. Gordon Walker sat at the overflow desk, a small laminate table pushed against the wall between the copier and the coat rack. It was the only space we had. He had arranged his pens in a perfect line. He had opened his laptop. He looked entirely out of place, like a lion trying to nap in a shoebox. I watched him from my office doorway. I had drafted the protocols the night before, and they were draconian. Rule 1, I said. walking over to him. "You do not touch the server. You have a local login only. Understood," he said. He did not look up. He was reading a file I had redacted so heavily it looked like a classified CIA document. "Rule 2, I continued. "No client calls without me or Mara on the line. You are a consultant, not counsel of record. If a client asks for legal advice, you put them on hold and get one of us." He nodded. "Of course. Rule 3, I said, leaning against the copier. "You do not talk to your old friends. If anyone from Hollis and Crown calls you, you document the time, the duration, and the substance of the conversation." Gordon finally looked up. He took off his reading glasses. "I am not here to socialize. Lucy, I am here to work." He agreed too easily. That was what bothered me. I wanted him to fight. I wanted the arrogance of the senior partner who used to terrorize associates for using the wrong font size. But he was docile. He was taking orders from his daughter in a room that smelled of toner and stale coffee. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It felt like he was waiting. I went back to my office and shut the door. I had a firm to run. But the firm did not feel like mine anymore. It felt like a stage where a play was being performed, and I was the only one who did not have the script. 2 hours later, the first mortar shell landed. It came in the form of an email from the Varick Hale Group. We were litigating a wrongful termination suit against a software company that had fired a pregnant sales director. It was a standard case, messy but winnable. We had a strategy session 3 days ago. Just me, Mara, and Avery, where I had floated a risky idea. I had suggested we focus on the company's internal chat logs rather than the official performance reviews. It was a hunch. I had not put it in any motion. I had not even written it down in the case file. I opened the attachment from Varick Hale. Motion for protective order regarding internal communications. I read the first paragraph. My stomach dropped. Plaintiff intends to pursue a fishing expedition regarding informal chat logs, unrelated to performance metrics. They knew. They knew exactly where I was going before I had even filed the notice. I called Mara in. "Did you talk to opposing counsel on the Sanders case?" I asked. "No," she said. "Why?" I spun the screen around. "They filed a preemptive motion blocking the chat logs." I said, "The exact strategy we discussed on Friday." Mara read it. Her face went pale. "We never filed that." She said, "We only talked about it in here." "Exactly." I said, "We both looked at the closed door of the conference room. Through the glass partition, we could see the back of Gordon's head. He was typing. He was not here on Friday." Mara whispered, "No." I said, "But he is here now, and maybe he has access to things we do not know about, or maybe he is just that good." Mara said, "Maybe he guessed. That is a very specific guess." I said, I felt a cold knot of paranoia tighten in my chest. I had invited him in. I had signed the contract. And now, my strategy was leaking to the other side. I needed to know. I needed to be sure. "I need to run a test." I said, "What kind of test?" "A canary trap." I said. I waited until lunch. Avery went out to get sandwiches. Mara went to court for a scheduling conference. The office was quiet. I walked over to Gordon's desk. "How is the document review coming?" I asked. "Slowly," he said. "You redact with a heavy hand. I need your eyes on something else." I said. I pulled up a file on my tablet. It was the Henderson case. A small contract dispute. It was low stakes. I'm worried about the deposition schedule. I lied. I think we need to move the plaintiff's deposition to next Thursday, the 16th. I am going to email opposing counsel today to request it. Can you look at the file and see if that creates a conflict? He looked at me. His eyes were unreadable. "Thursday the 16th, he repeated. "Yes." He typed something into his calendar. "It looks clear," he said. "Good." I said, "Keep that to yourself for now. I do not want to alarm the client until it is confirmed." I walked away. I did not email opposing counsel. I did not move the deposition. The date was a fiction, a piece of data that existed only in the air between me and my father. If that date appeared anywhere else, I would know. I spent the next 24 hours in a state of high-functioning anxiety. I practiced law. I answered emails. I reassured clients. But every time I looked at Gordon, I felt a surge of anger. He was polite. He was helpful. He made coffee. He reorganized our filing system. He was the perfect employee, and I was waiting for him to stab me in the back. Wednesday morning, 48 hours since the test. I was in the middle of drafting a demand letter when my inbox pinged. Subject: Henderson deposition. Scheduling conflict. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened the email. It was from the attorney representing the defendant in the Henderson case. A man named Greg Miller, a solo practitioner who played golf with half the partners at Hollis & Crown. Dear Ms. Walker, I understand you are looking to move the plaintiff's deposition to Thursday the 16th. Unfortunately, I have a trial that week. Please let me know if we can keep the original date. I stared at the screen. Thursday the 16th. He knew. Gordon had told him. There was no other explanation. I had not written it down. I had not told Mara. I had not told Avery. I had told Gordon Walker. And 48 hours later, the opposition knew. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. It was not just business. It was confirmation of everything I had feared since I was a child. I was not a peer to him. I was a resource. I was a piece on the board. He had come here not to help me, but to dismantle me from the inside. I stood up. My chair hit the wall with a bang. I walked out to the main room. Gordon was on the phone. He saw my face and hung up immediately. Who were you talking to? I demanded. My dry cleaner, he said. Lucy, what is wrong? You are a liar. I said. The office went silent. Avery stopped typing. Mara looked up from her desk. I beg your pardon? Gordon said. He stood up slowly. I told you the 16th. I said, I told you that date for the Henderson deposition. I told no one else. And I just got an email from Greg Miller referencing that exact date. Gordon's expression did not change. He did not look guilty. He looked alert. You ran a canary trap, he said. Yes, I said. And you caught the canary. You are leaking information. Why? Are you trying to destroy my credibility? Are you feeding cases to your friends? Lucy, listen to me, he said. His voice was low and urgent. No, I said. I am done listening. You are fired. Get your things. Get out of my office. I pointed to the door. He did not move. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the radiator. He looked at the smoke detector. Then he reached into his pocket. He pulled out a phone, not his smartphone, a cheap, black flip phone. He walked around the desk and placed it in my hand. I did not call Greg Miller. He said quietly, and I did not email him. Then how does he know? I shouted. Because they are listening, he said. I froze. What? Gordon pointed to his ear. Then to the room. The office is compromised, he said. I looked around the room, the peeling paint, the water-stained ceiling, the old desks. You are paranoid. I said, no one is bugging a 3-person firm in Harrogate. Mara stood up. Lucy, she said. Her voice was shaking. I turned to her. She was holding her laptop. I just ran the security logs, she said. Like you asked, on the email server. And? Avery's account, she said. It was accessed last night, at 3 a.m. Avery gasped. I was asleep. Where was the login from? I asked. It is masked, Mara said, but the IP routes through a server farm in Virginia, and Lucy. They downloaded the Henderson file, and the Sanders file. I looked back at Gordon. He was not the leak. He was just the only one who knew we were drowning. He stepped closer to me. I told you the 16th was a test, he said softly. I knew you were testing me. I knew it was a fake date. Then why did you let me think? Because I needed to know if the leak was human or digital. He said, if I had told Greg Miller, I would have corrected him. I would have said, she is thinking about it, but he quoted the date exactly as you said it to me. That means he heard you say it, or he read a transcript of our conversation. He took the flip phone from my hand and flipped it open. This is encrypted, he said. Signal bouncing through 3 proxies. If you want to survive this, stop using your own devices, stop using the landline, and for God's sake, stop saying sensitive dates out loud in this room. I looked at the phone, then I looked at my father. He looked tired. The facade of the arrogant partner was slipping. Beneath it, I saw a man who was terrified for his daughter. "Who is doing this?" I asked. The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. "Hollis and Crown," he said, "or the people they work for." I sat down on the edge of Avery's desk. My legs felt weak. "We are bugged." I said, "Likely," Gordon said, "or your phones are cloned, or the Wi-Fi is mirrored. It does not matter how. It matters that they are inside the wire." "Why?" I asked. "Why go to this much trouble for a small firm?" "Because of North Pine," Gordon said. I looked up. "You know about North Pine?" "I know everything about North Pine," he said. "That is why I am here." I grabbed the burner phone. "Come with me," I said. We walked out of the office. We walked down the stairs, out the front door, and 3 blocks down the street to a park bench facing the river. The wind was cold, biting through my coat. "Talk," I said. Gordon sat down. He stared at the gray water. "North Pine Biologics is not just a client," he said. "They are a keystone. They generate $40 million a year in revenue for the firm, but not for legal work. For what? Crisis containment," he said. I remembered the billing records I had seen in my head, the ones I had imagined finding. I checked the records. I said, "Your name is on the bills. Crisis containment." Gordon nodded. "Yes, it is a euphemism. It means burying problems, paying off witnesses, intimidating regulators, and cleaning up biological messes." "And you did it?" I asked. "You were the janitor?" "I was the architect," he said. The words hung in the cold air. "I designed the legal structures that allowed them to hide the dumping," he said. "I created the shell companies. I drafted the non-disclosure agreements that silenced the employees. I thought I was being a lawyer. I thought I was advocating for my client. And then I saw the cancer cluster map," he said. He looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed. 3 months ago, I saw an internal report. The runoff from the Harrogate facility enters the groundwater. There are 12 cases of pediatric leukemia in the surrounding neighborhoods. 12. Lucy. Statistical probability says there should be 0. I felt sick. "You knew." I said, "I found out." He corrected. "And I went to the executive committee. I told them we had to self-report. I told them we had to stop. And they told me that I was tired. They told me to take a sabbatical. And then, slowly, my access codes stopped working. My partner stopped returning my calls. And then the compliance officer, Sarah Jenkins, reached out to me." "Sarah contacted you?" "Yes. Before she contacted you, she wanted to blow the whistle. I told her I couldn't help her. I told her I was compromised. I told her to find someone who wasn't afraid of Hollis and Crown. I told her to find you." I stared at him. "You sent her to me?" "Indirectly." He said, "I told her there was only one lawyer in Harrogate who had the spine to fight them." "But you applied for a job." I said, "You came to work for me because I knew what they would do to you." He said, "I knew that as soon as you took the case, they would come for you. They would try to destroy your reputation. They would try to bankrupt you. They would try to disbar you. So you came to—" "What? Supervise the destruction?" "To stop it," he said. "Or at least, to give you a fighting chance." My phone, my real phone, buzzed in my pocket. I looked at it. It was Julian Vane, an old law school friend who was now on the ethics committee of the state bar. "I have to take this," I said. I answered, "Julian?" "Lucy," he said. His voice was hushed. "I am not supposed to make this call, but I owe you." "What is it?" "There is a complaint being drafted." He said, "Formal grievance, improper solicitation of a client, mishandling of confidential trade secrets. Sarah Jenkins." I said, "The complaint alleges you paid a witness to steal proprietary data from North Pine Biologics." "They have an affidavit." "From who?" "From the witness," he said. "Sarah Jenkins." I almost dropped the phone. "That is a lie," I said. "She came to me. They have her on record saying you approached her." Julian said, "Lucy, this is serious. They are going for an emergency suspension of your license. It is moving fast, faster than I have ever seen." Who is filing it? It is anonymous, he said. But the evidence package is polished. It looks like a big firm put it together. Hollis and Crown. Watch your back. Lucy, I have to go. The line went dead. I looked at Gordon. They turned her. I said, Sarah Jenkins. She signed an affidavit saying I solicited her. They are trying to disbar me. Gordon closed his eyes. Of course they are, he said. They got to her. They probably threatened her family, or they paid her off. It is the playbook. Chapter 1. He looked at me. I am sorry. Lucy, I brought this to your door. You did not bring it. I said, you built it. You built the machine that is trying to kill me. Gordon stood up. He looked out at the river again. I thought I could control it, he said. His voice broke. Just a little. I thought if I was the one pulling the levers, I could keep it from getting too dark. I thought I could be the ethical one in the room. He turned to me. I thought I could control the machine. He said, then I realized the machine was using me to get to you. How? I asked. They knew I would come here, he said. They knew I would try to protect you, and they are using my proximity to frame us both. If I am in your office, they can claim I stole the secrets and gave them to you. They can paint it as a conspiracy. Father and daughter, stealing from the firm to settle a grudge. I realized he was right. His presence was not a shield. It was the final nail in the coffin. We walked back to the office in silence. When we walked in, Avery was crying. She was holding a letter. A certified mail envelope with the red stamp of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Lucy, she said. I took the envelope. My hands were steady. I was past fear. I was in a place of cold. Hard clarity. I opened it. Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Office of Attorney Oversight, Notice of Investigation and Audit. Dear Ms. Walker, you are hereby notified that this office has opened a formal investigation into the practices of Walker Legal Collective regarding allegations of professional misconduct, theft of trade secrets, and witness tampering, effective immediately. Your firm is subject to a practice monitor. You are ordered to preserve all files. A hearing is scheduled for. I stopped reading. The date of the hearing was next Friday. They were not just suing me, they were erasing me. I looked at Gordon. He was reading the letter over my shoulder. This is the kill shot, he said softly. I looked at the burner phone in his hand. Then I looked at my team. Mara was pale. Avery was wiping her eyes. They wanted me to quit. They wanted me to be the girl who ran away when it got hard. I crumpled the letter in my hand. Mara, I said. She looked up. Get the encrypted laptop, I said. What are we doing? I looked at my father. You built the machine. I said to him, yes. He said, can you break it? Gordon looked at me. For the first time in 30 years, I saw something in his eyes that looked like respect. I can try, he said, but it will cost us everything. Then let's pay it, I said. The sound of a burner phone snapping shut. The siege was over. The war had begun. And for the first time, I was not fighting against my father. I was fighting alongside him, and I had no idea if that made me safer, or if I had just handed him the weapon he would use to finish me off. The radiator in the corner had finally stopped rattling. It had been replaced by the hum of portable servers and the sound of a shredder that we were too afraid to use. My office, once a sanctuary of scrappy independence, had been converted into a war room. The transformation was physical. We had pushed the desks together in the center of the main room to create a command pod. The windows were covered with paper blinds to prevent telephoto lenses from capturing our whiteboard. Boxes of files were stacked against the door like sandbags. But the psychological transformation was worse. I had hired Brindle and Marr Advisory. They were the premier ethics council in Boston. The kind of firm you called when the burning building was already collapsing on top of you. Their retainer was $15,000. I wrote the check with a hand that felt numb. That money was supposed to be our operating capital for the next 3 months. It was supposed to pay for a new paralegal and a server upgrade. Now, it was paying for 2 stern-faced lawyers to sit in my conference room and tell me how to survive an audit. The lead attorney from Brindle and Marr was a woman named Eleanor Vance. She was 60 years old, wore suits that looked like armor, and spoke in paragraphs that contained zero comfort and 100% liability assessment. "We need to mirror your hard drives," Eleanor said. She did not ask. She ordered. My stomach twisted. "Everything?" I asked. "Every email, every text message, every draft." She said, "The Office of Attorney Oversight is going to subpoena your entire digital life. Lucy, if we do not see it first, we cannot defend it." I nodded. I knew the procedure. I had done it to clients a dozen times. "Give me your phone. Give me your passwords. Let me see the skeletons." But being on the other side of the table was different. It felt like a violation. I watched as her technician plugged a cable into my laptop. I watched a progress bar creep across the screen, copying 5 years of my life, my client notes, my late-night strategy emails to Mara, the drafts of resignation letters I never sent, the emails to my mother about her garden. I felt exposed. I felt dirty, and that was the insidious genius of an investigation. You did not have to be guilty to feel shame. The act of being audited, of having strangers pick through your professional underwear drawer, made you question your own memory. Did I say something improper in that email from 2 years ago? Did I cross a line with that client in 2023? I looked across the room at Gordon. He was sitting at his small table, reading through a stack of printouts. He had offered to help with the document production, but Eleanor had forbidden it. "He is the contagion," she had said. "Keep him quarantined." So he sat there, watching his daughter's firm being dissected because of a virus he had brought through the door. He stood up and walked over to me. "Lucy," he said quietly. I did not look at him. I watched the progress bar. 32%. "What?" I asked. "You should accept my resignation," he said. I looked up then. His face was gray. The arrogance was gone. "It is the cleanest move," he said. "You fire me. You claim I misled you about my status with Hollis and Crown. You claim I brought the toxic files into the office without your knowledge. You paint me as the rogue agent and yourself as the victim. It solves the optics problem." I laughed. It was a dry, cracking sound. "The optics problem." I repeated. "It gives the Oversight Committee a head on a platter." Gordon said. "They want a scalp. Give them mine. It might save your license." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had told me I would never be a real lawyer because I cared too much, because I was too soft. And here he was, suggesting the most cynical, pragmatic, Hollis and Crown solution imaginable. Cut the limb to save the body. "No," I said. "Lucy, be rational," he urged. "I am being rational." I said, "If I fire you now, I am admitting that I hired you without due diligence. I am admitting that I lost control of my firm. And more importantly, I am doing exactly what they want me to do." "What they want?" "They want me to panic." I said, "They want me to throw you overboard so they can pick us off one by one. If I fire you, you lose your privilege. They can depose you immediately. They can force you to testify against me." Gordon closed his mouth. He had not thought of that. Or maybe he had, and he was willing to take the risk. "And there is something else," I said. "What?" "If I fire you to save my own skin, I become the kind of lawyer you always wanted me to be." I said, "I become you. Image first, truth second." I turned back to the screen. "You are staying." I said, "Go sit down." He stood there for a moment longer, looking at me with an expression I could not decipher. Then he turned and went back to his desk. The progress bar hit 100%. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a cold, hard resolve. "Mara," I called out. She looked up from her monitor. Her eyes were rimmed with red. She had not slept in 2 days. "Get the logs," I said. "Which logs?" "The network access logs. The router traffic. Everything. If we are going to be audited, I want to know exactly when the infection started." We spent the afternoon building a timeline. It was tedious, granular work. We matched server spikes with calendar dates. We matched login attempts with external events. It was like trying to reconstruct a car crash by looking at the skid marks. "Here," Mara said. pointing to a line of code on the large monitor we had set up. "What is it?" "August 14th, she said. 3 months ago." I looked at the date. That was the day of the settlement. I said, "The day we beat Hollis and Crown." "Look at the traffic," Mara said. I leaned in. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, exactly 1 hour after the settlement agreement was signed, our firewall registered a massive spike in ping requests, thousands of them. "A DDoS attack?" I asked. "No," Mara said. "A smokescreen." While the firewall was busy fighting off the pings, a single, authorized user credential was used to open a backdoor port. "Whose credential?" "Yours," she said. I stared at the screen. "They phished me?" "No," Mara said. "They cloned your session token. Someone was sitting outside in a van, or using a directional antenna, and they grabbed your handshake with the Wi-Fi. On the day of the victory, it was immediate retaliation. They did not wait a week. They did not wait a month. The moment the ink was dry on their check, they breached my system. They knew you were a threat." Gordon said from his corner. I turned to him. "They knew I was a threat?" I asked. "Or they knew I was the designated target?" He did not answer. I looked back at the timeline. The breach remained dormant for weeks, just watching, listening, reading my emails, and then, 3 days ago, the Sarah Jenkins file appeared. "They waited until they had a hook," I said. "They waited until they could plant a poison pill. We need to talk to her." I said, "Who?" Eleanor asked. Looking up from her notes, "Sarah Jenkins." I said, "The compliance officer." "Absolutely not," Eleanor said. "She is a represented party, or a witness in a pending investigation. If you contact her, you are tampering. You will be disbarred before dinner. I am not going to contact her." I said, "You are—" I looked at the formidable woman in the expensive suit. "You are my ethics counsel." I said, "You are going to call the North Pine General Counsel and tell them that a whistleblower has reached out to us, and we are conducting a conflicts check. You are going to demand a secure, off-the-record interview to verify her identity and her consent. That is highly irregular." Eleanor said, "So is a corporate law firm hacking my server." I snapped. Eleanor looked at me. She tapped her pen on the table. "If I set this up," she said, "I control the room. You do not ask leading questions. You do not solicit. You listen." "Fine," I said. It took 6 hours of negotiating. Eleanor Vance was worth every penny of her $15,000. She bulldozed the North Pine lawyers. She cited obscure ethics opinions. She threatened to file a motion with the court detailing the harassment of a whistleblower. By 8 o'clock that night, we were in a conference room at the Courtyard Marriott near the airport. Neutral ground. Sarah Jenkins walked in. She looked worse than she had in my office. She was shaking. She was flanked by a lawyer from North Pine, a slick man in a blue suit who looked like he checked his stock portfolio every 3 minutes. And Eleanor was there, sitting next to me like a bodyguard. "Ms. Jenkins," Eleanor began, "we are here simply to clarify your intent regarding the retention of Miss Walker's firm." Sarah looked at the North Pine lawyer. He gave a barely perceptible nod. "I did not retain her," Sarah said. Her voice was flat. She approached me. She offered me money for the data. I felt the blood roar in my ears. It was a lie, a scripted, coerced lie. "Ms. Jenkins," I said. She flinched. "Ms. Walker," Eleanor warned. I ignored her. "Ms. Jenkins, look at me." Sarah looked up. Her eyes were swimming with tears. "Who told you to come to my office?" I asked. The North Pine lawyer slammed his hand on the table. "Objection. This is harassment. She has stated her position." I kept my eyes on Sarah. "Who gave you my name?" I asked. "Because I know you did not find me in the phone book. I am a nobody. You work for a billion-dollar company. Who told you that Lucy Walker was the person to see?" Sarah's lip trembled. I cannot," she whispered. "You can." I said, "You are in a safe room. This is privileged. Who sent you?" Sarah looked at the lawyer, then back at me. She looked at the door. She looked like an animal caught in a trap, deciding whether to chew off its own leg. It was Mr. Senate, she whispered. The room went silent. Trevor Sennett, the lead litigator at Hollis and Crown, Gordon's protege. "Trevor told you to come to me?" I asked. She nodded. He said there was a problem with the data. He said it needed to go away, but it couldn't go away inside the firm. It had to go outside. And what did he say about me? Sarah closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. He said to take it to Walker. She said, "He said she is hungry. He said she is looking for a fight. And he said, make the problem land in the right place." I sat back in my chair. Make the problem land in the right place. I was not the lawyer. I was the landfill. They sent her to me not because they feared me, but because they needed a patsy. They needed a place to dump the radioactive waste so they could call the authorities and point a finger. "Look, she stole it. Look, she has the stolen drive." I looked at Sarah. "Did he threaten you?" I asked. She nodded again. "He said if I didn't do it, he would release my medical records. He said I would never see my kids again." The North Pine lawyer stood up. "This meeting is over." He grabbed Sarah's arm. She winced. "We are leaving," he said. They walked out. I sat in the silence of the hotel conference room. Eleanor Vance closed her notebook. "Well," she said, "that complicates things. It clears things." I said, "It proves you were framed." She said, "But we have no recording. We have no affidavit. It is her word against yours. And she just recanted in front of a witness. She told the truth." I said, "Ideally." "Yes," Eleanor said, "but in a court of law, she just admitted to a conspiracy." We drove back to the office in silence. My phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated. It was late. Evelyn never called this late unless something was wrong. "Hello?" "Lucy," she said. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the vibration of anger underneath it. "What is it? Are you okay?" "I had a visitor today," she said. "Who?" "A man. He said he was a journalist, working on a profile about you, about your rising star." I gripped the steering wheel. "What did he ask?" "He asked about high school," she said. "He asked about the time you broke your arm in the 10th grade. He asked if you had a history of emotional outbursts." My stomach dropped. "He asked if you took medication," she continued. "He asked about your boyfriends. He asked if you had ever been violent." I felt a cold rage spreading through my chest. "Did he give a name?" "He said his name was Mark," she said. "But he left a card. It fell out of his pocket when he got into his car. It says Juniper Gray Strategies." Juniper Gray. They were not journalists. They were reputation management consultants. They were professional smear artists. They were the people you hired when you wanted to destroy a witness before they took the stand. They are building a file. I said, "I realize that," Evelyn said. "I told him to get off my property. I told him if he came back, I would shoot him. And I meant it. Lucy, I know you did." "Mom, they are scared of you," she said. "People don't dig up high school medical records unless they are terrified of what you're about to do. I am scared too." I said, "Good," she said. "Fear makes you sharp. Just don't let it make you cruel." I hung up. I walked back into the office. It was midnight. Mara and Avery had gone home. Eleanor had gone back to her hotel. Only Gordon was there. He was sitting in the dark, illuminated only by the streetlights filtering through the blinds. He was asleep in his chair, his head resting on his chest. I looked at him, my father, the lion of the legal bar, sleeping in a chair that cost $40 at an office supply liquidation sale. I walked over to his desk. His leather bag was open on the floor. I needed a charger. My phone was dying. I looked around for a cable. I saw the white coil of a charger inside his bag. I reached in to grab it. My hand brushed against a thick envelope. It was not sealed. The flap was tucked in. I pulled it out. It was a legal document. Affidavit of Gordon Walker. I froze. I opened it. I began to read. I, Gordon Walker, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare. It was a confession. It was detailed, meticulous. It laid out the entire North Pine scheme, the shell companies, the payments to inspectors, the intimidation of witnesses. I acted as the architect of these strategies. It read, I did so under the direction of the Executive Committee of Hollis and Crown. I turned the pages. It was damning. It was suicide. If he signed this, he would go to prison, or at the very least, he would be disbarred and disgraced forever. But it was not signed. I looked at the date at the top of the first page. August 1st. I did the math. August 1st was 2 months ago. It was before he applied to my firm. It was before the settlement. It was before Sarah Jenkins came to me. He had written this before any of this happened. He had been planning to blow the whistle for months. I looked at the sleeping man. He had not come to me to save himself. He had not come to me to hide. He had come to me because he needed a lawyer. He needed someone to represent him when he dropped the bomb. And he knew that no firm in Boston would touch him. They were all too connected, too afraid of Hollis and Crown. He needed someone who had nothing to lose. He needed his daughter. I felt a sudden, overwhelming wave of emotion. Grief, anger, and a strange, twisted kind of love. He had tried to protect me by keeping me out of it, and when he couldn't keep me out of it, he had tried to use me as his vessel. He stirred. Gordon opened his eyes. He blinked, adjusting to the darkness. He saw me standing there. Then he saw the document in my hand. He sat up straight. He did not lunge for it. He just watched me. You wrote this in August. I said, yes, he said. His voice was rough with sleep. You were going to turn yourself in. Yes. Why didn't you? He rubbed his face. Because I lost my nerve, he said. I stared at him. You? The man who stares down federal judges? You lost your nerve? I am not afraid of prison. Lucy, he said, I am afraid of being erased. I knew that if I filed this alone, they would bury it. They would bury me. I needed leverage. I needed a platform. So you applied to my firm? Yes. You thought if you were here, if you were part of the Walker Legal Collective, you could use my credibility to shield your testimony. I thought I could help you build a firm strong enough to survive the fallout, he said. And instead, you brought the fallout to my doorstep. I said, you let them target me. You let them hack my server. You let them send a spy to entrap me. All because you wanted to have your cake and eat it too. You wanted to be the whistleblower, but you didn't want to die on the grenade. I wanted to protect you, he shouted. He stood up. Don't you dare. I said, my voice was low. Dangerous. Don't you dare say you did this for me. You did this because you were drowning. And you grabbed the only life raft you could find. And you didn't care if you pulled me down with you. Gordon looked at me. He looked at the affidavit in my hand. You are right, he said softly. I used you. I have always used you. Because you are the only thing I ever created that was good. The words hung in the air. I walked over to the shredder. Gordon watched me. His eyes widened. Lucy, no, he said. That is the evidence. I held the affidavit over the slot. This is not evidence. I said, this is a draft. This is a fairy tale you told yourself so you could sleep at night. An unsigned confession is worthless. Gordon, it is just paper. I turned the shredder on. I fed the document into the teeth. It screamed as it tore the paper into confetti. Gordon watched it go. He looked stricken. Why did you do that? He whispered. That was my leverage. I turned off the machine. Because I am not going to let you file a piece of paper and hide behind it. I said. I walked up to him. I was inches from his face. I am not your daughter right now. I said, I am your lawyer. And I am giving you legal advice. He looked at me, his blue eyes searching mine. What is the advice? You want my protection? I asked. You want to save this firm? You want to stop them from destroying my life and Sarah Jenkins' life? Yes, he said. Then you are not going to send an affidavit. I said. I pointed at the empty witness chair in the center of the room. You are going to take the stand. I said. Gordon froze. Testify? He said. In open court? Yes. They will destroy me, he said. They will cross-examine me about everything. The alcoholism in the 90s, the affair, The bribe I paid in 2004. They will strip me naked. Lucy, I know. I said. I looked him dead in the eye. That is the price. Dad, he flinched at the word. Dad, I hadn't called him that in 10 years. I am not going to save you. I said, I am not going to plea bargain you into a quiet retirement. If you want to take down Hollis and Crown, you have to burn with it. You have to tell the truth. All of it. The ugly, illegal, career-ending truth. Publicly, under oath. He stared at me. He looked at his hands. The tremor was back. I can't, he whispered. Then get out. I said, get out of my office and let them disbar me. Let them win. But do not stand there and tell me you respect the law. He looked up. He looked at the shredded paper in the bin. He looked at the war room I had built to clean up his mess. Then he straightened his tie. He buttoned his jacket. He took a deep breath, and the tremor in his hands stopped. When is the hearing? He asked. Friday, I said. You need me to connect the dots. What do you want? I asked. I want you to control the narrative, he said. When you examine me, you stick to the North Pine facts. You do not bring up the personal failures. You do not paint me as a monster to the press. I looked at him, even now, standing on the edge of the abyss. He was worried about his obituary. I will not paint you as a monster, I said quietly. Thank you, he said. I am not finished. I said, I will not paint you as a monster because I do not have to. You did that yourself. He flinched. You did it when you told a 22-year-old girl she wasn't real. I said, you did it when you tried to strangle my career in the crib because you thought you knew better. You did it when you built a machine that poisons children and intimidates mothers. I am not going to turn you into anything. Gordon, I am just going to turn on the lights, and whatever the world sees, that is what you are. He held my gaze for a long moment, then he nodded. Fine, he said. Turn on the lights. The next 3 days were a blur of caffeine, paper cuts, and the suffocating boredom of federal bureaucracy. We were filing a whistleblower submission to the Federal Corporate Integrity Bureau. In the movies, this is the moment where the hero hands a dossier to a grim-faced agent in a parking garage. In reality, it involves filling out Form 14B in triplicate, indexing 3,000 pages of exhibits, and writing a cover letter that has to be legally bulletproof. Justice, I learned, usually looks like paperwork before it looks like truth. Eleanor Vance, my ethics counsel, was a machine. She set up a secure, clean room in my conference room. We worked in shifts, me, Mara, Avery, and Gordon. Gordon was useful. I hated to admit it. But he knew the internal codes. He knew that Project Azure meant the dumping protocol and Project Opaque meant the hush money fund. He annotated the files with a speed and precision that was terrifying. He was dissecting his own life's work with the same cold efficiency he had used to build it. By Thursday afternoon, the package was done. 2 heavy banker's boxes, taped and sealed. We shipped it via armored courier. I watched the truck drive away from the curb. I felt a momentary sense of relief. It was out of our hands. The government had it now, but Hollis and Crown did not wait for the government. 2 hours later, the front door of my office opened. A man walked in. He was not a client. He was wearing a windbreaker and chewing gum. Lucy Walker? He asked. Yes, you are served. He dropped a stack of documents on Avery's desk and walked out. I walked over and picked them up. The paper was heavy. Expensive bond. The cover page was stamped Emergency Motion. Hollis and Crown LLP versus Walker Legal Collective, Lucy Walker, and Gordon Walker. Civil action number 26 CV409. I read the motion. They were suing us for theft of trade secrets, tortious interference with business relations, and conversion of proprietary property. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the prayer for relief. Plaintiff seeks an immediate temporary restraining order enjoining defendants from accessing, disseminating, or utilizing any documents obtained from Hollis and Crown. Plaintiff further seeks an order of seizure for all electronic devices in defendant's possession and an immediate freeze of all operating and trust accounts held by Walker Legal Collective. They were trying to kill us. If the judge granted this, they would come in and take our computers. They would take our phones. They would freeze the bank account where I held client money. It would trigger an automatic ethics violation. It would shut off the lights, the internet, and the payroll. It was a death sentence, executed by a judge's signature. I looked at the hearing date. Tomorrow. 9 o'clock in the morning, Harrogate Superior Court. They gave us less than 18 hours to prepare. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Avery?" I called out. She looked at me. She saw the document in my hand. "What is it?" "Call the bank." I said, "Tell me if the cards still work." She picked up the phone. She dialed the automated system. I watched her face. She frowned. She typed in the PIN. She listened. She hung up. Account frozen. She said, "Pending judicial review." They had already called the bank. They had used their leverage to lock us out before the judge even signed the order. I looked at my team. "We have no money." I said, "I cannot pay you this week. I probably cannot pay the rent. And tomorrow morning. They are going to try to come in here and take every laptop in the room." The silence was heavy. The radiator hissed, a mockery of domestic comfort. "This is the part where I tell you to go home," I said. "You do not need to be here for this. This is my fight." And I pointed to Gordon. He was sitting at his small table, staring at the lawsuit. Mara stood up. She walked over to the coffee pot. She poured a cup. She sat back down. "I have nowhere to be," she said. "My cat is very self-sufficient." Avery adjusted her glasses. "I am not leaving. Lucy, who is going to organize the defense exhibits? You file everything in the wrong subfolders." I looked at them. They were scared. I could see it in the way Mara was shredding a paperclip with her fingers. I could see it in the way Avery kept checking her phone. But they stayed. I looked at Gordon. He was watching them too. He looked confused. In his world, loyalty was a line item. You bought it with bonuses and partnership tracks. He did not understand loyalty that existed simply because you believed in the person standing next to you. "Thank you," I said. My voice was thick. "Now," I said, turning to the whiteboard, "let's see who is trying to execute us." I flipped to the signature page of the lawsuit. I expected to see the managing partner, or the head of the intellectual property group. I saw a name I had not thought about in 7 years. Trevor Sennett. I froze. "You know him?" Mara asked. I nodded slowly. "Law school." I said, "We were in the same study group first year." I remembered Trevor. He was handsome, polished, and effortlessly cruel. He was the kind of law student who hid library books so other students couldn't study. He was the kind of man who treated every conversation like a cross-examination. He asked me out once. I said, "Second year." I said no. I told him I had to study for evidence, and he told everyone in the student lounge that I was a frigid grind. He said I was too ambitious to be likable. Gordon looked up. "Trevor Sennett is the lead?" he asked. "Yes," I said. Gordon closed his eyes. "I hired him," he said. "What?" "I hired him out of clerkship," Gordon said. "I mentored him. I taught him how to depose a hostile witness. I taught him how to bury a document production." I looked at the lawsuit. The arguments were vicious. They were personal. They painted me not just as a thief, but as an unstable daughter acting out of daddy issues. Defendant Lucy Walker has long harbored a personal animus toward her father's firm. Defendant's actions are those of a reckless practitioner seeking to damage a reputation she could not earn. "He is using your playbook." "Gordon," I said. "No," Gordon said. "He is using yours." "What do you mean?" "He knows where you are weak," Gordon said. "He knows you care about being seen as competent. He knows you hate being called emotional. He is attacking your identity, not just your actions. He wants you to lose your temper in court. If you get angry, you prove his point." I felt a cold nod of recognition. Gordon was right. Trevor Sennett was baiting me. I looked at the clock. It was 8 o'clock at night. "We have 12 hours, I said. "We need to draft an opposition. We need to prepare affidavits. And we need to prepare you." "Gordon, I am ready," he said. "No, you are not." I said. I walked over to the printer. I picked up a document that had just come through the fax line. Yes, we still had a fax line, because the court system lived in 1995. It was a third-party notice. You have been served too, I said. I handed him the paper. It was a notice from the United States Attorney's Office, a target letter, investigation regarding conspiracy to defraud regulators. Gordon read it. His hands started to shake. They are moving fast. He whispered, "Read the second paragraph." I said. He read it. We are in receipt of information suggesting that Gordon Walker acted as the sole architect of the non-compliance strategy. He looked up, his face pale. Sole architect. He repeated, "They are cutting you loose." I said, "Hollis and Crown is cooperating. They are giving the government you. They are saying you went rogue, that you built the North Pine scheme without the executive committee's knowledge." "That is a lie," Gordon said. "They signed off on everything. The minutes of the meetings, the budget approvals. Do you have those minutes?" I asked. "No," he said. "They are on the secure server, the one I can't access. Then it is your word against the firm." I said, "And the firm has 500 lawyers and $1 billion. He sat down heavily. "I am the scapegoat," he said. "Yes," I said. "They are going to feed you to the wolves to save the partnership. Trevor Sennett is not just suing me, he is framing you." Gordon looked at the window, covered by the paper blinds. "I taught him too well," he said softly. The doorbell rang. We all jumped. "It is 10 o'clock. Avery whispered. "Who is ringing the doorbell?" "Don't answer it," Gordon said. "It could be a process server or a reporter." I walked to the door. I looked through the peephole. I unlocked the deadbolt. "Mom?" I said. Evelyn Walker stood in the hallway. She was wearing a heavy wool coat and carrying a Tupperware container. She walked in, shaking the rain off her umbrella. "I brought lasagna," she said. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I asked. "You should be in Vermont. It is not safe here." She looked around the war room. She looked at the boxes of files. She looked at Gordon, who was staring at her like she was an apparition. "Hello? Gordon?" she said. "Evelyn," he said. "You look well. You look like hell," she said. She put the lasagna on Avery's desk. "I am here because my daughter is being sued by a firm that eats people for sport," she said, "and because I know you. Gordon, I know that when you get scared, you get selfish. I am here to make sure you don't throw Lucy in front of the bus to save your pension." "I am not," Gordon said. "We will see," she said. She turned to me. She took my face in her hands. Her hands were warm and smelled of soil and rain. "I stayed away for a long time," she said. "I know." I said, "I didn't want you to be part of this world," she said. "I didn't want you to become a lawyer fueled by revenge. I saw what it did to your father. It hollowed him out. I wanted you to be free. I am not free. Mom," I said, "I am trapped." "No," she said. "You are fighting. There is a difference." She looked at me with fierce, clear eyes. "Are you doing this to hurt him?" she asked, gesturing to Gordon. "Or are you doing this to find the truth?" I looked at my father. He looked small and broken in the fluorescent light. "I don't want to hurt him," I said. "I just want the truth to stop hiding." "Then you are not fueled by revenge." Evelyn said, "You are fueled by clarity, and clarity is a weapon. Lucy, use it." We ate the lasagna in the conference room. It was surreal. My mother, my father, my staff, and me, eating dinner at midnight while the world outside prepared to crush us. After dinner, we went back to work. We needed to understand the investor. The merger offer Gordon had made me in part two, the boutique firm funded by a quiet backer. I pulled the term sheet out of the recycle bin where I had thrown it weeks ago. "Who is the investor?" I asked Gordon. "You never told me the name." "It was a holding company." Gordon said, "Orion Capital." I gave the name to Mara. "Trace it," I said. Mara typed. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Orion Capital is a Delaware LLC," she said. "Registered agent is a mail drop in Wilmington." "Dig deeper," I said. "Who pays the registration fees?" "Give me a minute." The room was silent. Except for the clicking of keys. Got it, she said. She spun the screen around. The payment for the LLC registration came from a corporate account linked to another entity. JGS Holdings. JGS, I repeated. Juniper Gray Strategies. Mara said. The room spun. Juniper Gray, the reputation management firm. The smear merchants who had visited my mother. The people Hollis and Crown hired to destroy witnesses. I looked at Gordon. You told me the investor was independent. I said, I thought they were. Gordon said, they approached me. They said they specialized in distressed legal assets. Distressed legal assets. I laughed. That is me. I am the distressed asset. They were not trying to invest in us. I said, they were trying to buy us. I looked at the term sheet. Clause 4. A. In the event of merger, all client files and case history of Walker Legal Collective transfer to the new entity. Clause 6. B. Lucy Walker agrees to a 2-year non-compete and relinquishes control of all active litigation. It was a trap. If I had signed this, if I had agreed to the merger, I would have handed over the North Pine files legally. I would have given them the Sarah Jenkins evidence, and I would have signed a contract that prevented me from suing them. It was a Trojan horse, and my father had wheeled it into my office. They played you. Gordon, I said, they played you like a fiddle. They knew you wanted to save me, so they gave you a solution that looked like salvation but was actually a cage. Gordon looked at the document. He looked sick. I didn't know. He whispered, I swear. Lucy, I thought I was fixing it. You were delivering me to the executioner. I stood up. This is the evidence. I said, what? Avery asked. This is how we fight the injunction. I said, they are arguing that I'm stealing their secrets. But this proves that they have been trying to steal my firm for months. They tried to buy my silence through a shell company. This proves the lawsuit is not about trade secrets. It is about suppression of evidence. It is an abuse of process. I looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. We have 5 hours until court. I said, draft the affidavit. I told Gordon, not the confession, the timeline, the merger offer, the Juniper Gray connection. You put it all on paper. He nodded. He started typing. I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. I looked in the mirror. I looked exhausted. My eyes were dark circles. My hair was a mess. But Evelyn was right. I felt clear. For 30 years, I had been afraid of my father, afraid of his judgment, afraid of his power, afraid that he was right about me, that I wasn't real. But looking at the reflection, I realized he was never the giant I thought he was. He was just a man who had built a castle out of lies. And now he was terrified because the wind was blowing. I walked back into the war room. Gordon handed me the affidavit. He had signed it. I took it. We are going to court, I said, and you are going to take the stand. Gordon, he looked at me. I know. He said, you are going to tell the judge about the merger. I said, but that is not all. What else? You are going to tell the judge about Trevor Sennett. You are going to tell him that the man representing the plaintiff is a material witness to the fraud you are describing. You are going to disqualify their lead counsel in open court. Gordon smiled. It was a weak, ghost of a smile. That is aggressive, he said. It is not aggressive. I said, it is architecture. I picked up my briefcase. Let's go, I said. We walked out into the pre-dawn darkness of Harrogate. The city was gray and cold. The courthouse loomed in the distance, a massive block of stone that didn't care about truth or lies. I wasn't doing this to save my father. I wasn't doing this to save my firm. I was doing this because they had tried to buy me, and I was not for sale. The wind whipped my coat around my legs, beside me. Gordon Walker looked old and frail. But I stood straight. I checked my watch. 7 o'clock, 2 hours until the showdown. I was ready to find out if I was a real lawyer, or if I was just the daughter of a man who used to be one. Courtroom 3B did not look like the place where my life would end. It looked like a registry of motor vehicles office that had been repurposed for low-stakes divorces. The carpet was a shade of industrial gray that hid coffee stains but amplified depression. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a sound like trapped insects. The clerk, a man who looked like he had not smiled since 1998, was slowly eating a bagel behind his monitor. I sat at the defense table. My hands were folded on top of a stack of binders. They were cold, not cool, but ice cold, the blood having retreated to my vital organs to keep me alive. Next to me sat Eleanor Vance from Brindle and Marr. She was calm. She was billing $800 an hour to sit there and look unimpressed. Behind me sat Gordon. He was not at the table. He was in the gallery, sitting alone in the front row. He wore his best suit, but he looked smaller than I had ever seen him. He looked like a man who had already lost everything and was just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. Opposing counsel table was crowded. Trevor Sennett was there, flanked by 3 associates who looked like clones of his younger self. They had expensive laptops and eager, predatory smiles. All rise, the clerk mumbled through a mouthful of bagel. Judge Harold P. Gentry walked in. He was an older man with a reputation for hating drama. He liked contract disputes. He liked zoning laws. He did not like emergency injunctions filed on a Friday morning. He sat down and rubbed his temples. "We are here on the matter of Hollis and Crown versus Walker Legal Collective," he said. "Plaintiff seeks a temporary restraining order and seizure of assets. Mr. Sennett, you have 10 minutes. Do not waste them." Trevor stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at the judge. Then he looked at me. He smiled. It was the same smile he had given me in the law school library right before he told a group of first-years that I was affirmative action for mediocrity. "Your Honor," he began. His voice was smooth, polished mahogany. "This is a simple case of theft. The defendant, Lucy Walker, runs a small, struggling practice, a vanity practice, if I may be blunt, that has never handled high-stakes litigation." I stiffened. Vanity practice, desperate for relevance, and perhaps motivated by a personal family dynamic that belongs in therapy rather than a courtroom. Ms. Walker hired her father, a former partner at our firm, for the express purpose of misappropriating trade secrets. He gestured to the empty air. Together, they conspired to steal thousands of confidential documents related to our client, North Pine Biologics. They are now attempting to weaponize these stolen documents to extort a settlement. We are asking the court to stop this illegal conduct, seize the stolen data, and freeze the defendant's assets to prevent further harm. He sat down. It was clean. It was vicious. It painted me as a petty, vindictive daughter and Gordon as a senile traitor. "Ms. Walker?" the judge said. I stood up. My knees felt like water. "Your Honor," I said. My voice was steady. I forced it to be steady. "The plaintiff is not here to protect trade secrets. They are here to suppress evidence of criminal misconduct." I picked up the first binder. "We have submitted an affidavit from a forensic security analyst. It details a digital intrusion into my firm's network. This intrusion began on August 14th. I looked at Trevor. "That is the day I settled a case against the plaintiff. The breach originated from an IP address that we have traced to a reputation management firm hired by the plaintiff. They have been reading my emails for 3 months. They planted the files they are now accusing me of stealing." The judge looked at the binder. He flipped a page. "Hacking allegations are serious. Ms. Walker," he said, "but they are hard to prove. Do you have a witness?" "Yes, Your Honor." I said, "I call Gordon Walker." A ripple went through the courtroom. The clerk stopped chewing his bagel. Trevor Sennett whispered something to his associate. Gordon stood up. He walked to the witness stand. He swore to tell the truth. He sat down. He looked at me. "State your name for the record." I said, "Gordon Walker." "Mr. Walker, were you employed by Hollis and Crown?" "For 30 years. I was a senior partner and chair of the litigation department. Why did you leave?" I paused. This was the moment. The script we had rehearsed said he should talk about the toxic culture. Gordon looked at the judge. "I left because I discovered that my firm was poisoning the water supply of this county," he said, "and I realized I had helped them do it." Trevor Sennett jumped up. "Objection. Hearsay. Irrelevant. Privilege. Overruled," the judge said. He leaned forward. Continue. Mr. Walker, I designed the legal strategy to hide the contamination. Gordon said, I created the shell companies. I drafted the non-disclosure agreements. I was the architect. And why did you apply to my firm? I asked. Gordon looked at me. His eyes were sad. Because I needed a lawyer. He said, and I knew no one else would take the case. Did you steal documents for me? No. Did I ask you to steal documents? No. Then why are we here? Gordon took a breath. We are here because I made a mistake, he said. I thought I could control the fallout. I thought I could come to your firm, use your reputation to shield myself, and manage the disclosure. I was arrogant. He looked at his hands. I have always been arrogant when it comes to you. Lucy, I felt a lump in my throat. Stick to the script. Gordon, Mr. Walker, I said. Did you ever interfere with my career prior to this employment? Trevor stood up again. Objection! Relevance! It goes to the plaintiff's claim that this is a personal vendetta. I said, I am establishing the history of the relationship. I will allow it. The judge said, briefly. Gordon looked at the gallery. Yes, he said. When Lucy applied for the bar, I called a friend on the committee. I asked them to delay her application. I asked them to investigate her references. Why? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. Because I wanted you to quit, he said. I told myself it was because you weren't tough enough. I told myself that if you couldn't handle a bureaucratic delay, you couldn't handle the practice. And now I know the truth. He said, I didn't do it to test you. I did it because I was afraid for you. The law is a grinder. Lucy, it eats people. It ate me. I didn't want it to eat you. He looked me in the eyes. I confused control with love, he said. The room was silent. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to hum quieter. I confused control with love. It was the most honest thing he had ever said to me. It cut through 30 years of resentment like a scalpel. Your witness, I said. Trevor Sennett approached the stand. He did not look happy. He looked like a man who was watching his narrative dissolve. Mr. Walker, Trevor said, you are facing criminal liability, are you not? Yes, Gordon said, and you are testifying here today in exchange for leniency from your daughter? You are hoping she will save you? Gordon smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. My daughter is not going to save me. Trevor, she advised me yesterday that I have to plead guilty. She told me to tell the truth, even if it destroys me. She is a better lawyer than I ever was, and certainly a better lawyer than you. Trevor flinched. You are a bitter old man. Trevor spat out. You are burning down the house because you were pushed out. I am burning down the house because it is full of rot, Gordon said. And you know it. Trevor, you signed the checks to Juniper Gray. Objection, Trevor shouted. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Sennett, watch your tone. Trevor asked a few more questions, trying to paint Gordon as unstable, as an alcoholic, as a liar. Gordon admitted to all of it. Yes, he drank too much. Yes, he had lied for years. His honesty was a shield. Trevor couldn't penetrate it because Gordon wasn't defending himself. He was surrendering. Trevor sat down, frustrated. I stood up for redirect. Mr. Walker, I said, just one question. I looked at the man who had raised me, the man who had been my ghost, my judge, and my enemy. If the court grants this injunction, I asked, if they seize our files and freeze our accounts, what happens to the evidence against North Pine Biologics? It disappears. Gordon said, it goes back into the vault at Hollis and Crown, and the dumping continues. Thank you, I said. I sat down. The judge looked at the papers in front of him. He tapped his pen on the bench. This is a mess, he said. We have allegations of hacking. We have allegations of corporate poisoning. We have a father testifying against his former firm. He looked at me. Ms. Walker, your security protocols were clearly breached. That puts client data at risk. Even if you are the victim, I have a duty to protect the public. He paused. I am inclined to grant a limited injunction. He said, I am going to appoint a special master to oversee your servers until this is resolved. And I'm going to freeze your operating account for 7 days to allow for an audit. My heart stopped. 7 days. We couldn't survive 7 days. We had rent due on Monday. We had expert witness fees due on Wednesday. If he froze the account, we bounced checks. If we bounced checks, we were reported to the bar. It was a slow death instead of a fast one. Your Honor, I started to say. Suddenly, Mara tapped me on the shoulder. She slid her phone across the table. Read this, she whispered. Her hand was shaking. I looked down. It was an email from the General Counsel of North Pine Biologics. Subject: Settlement offer. Confidential Ms. Walker. In the interest of avoiding protracted litigation, North Pine Biologics is prepared to offer a global settlement. We will pay Walker Legal Collective the sum of $5 million in attorney fees. We will pay a confidential sum to the whistleblower. Condition: immediate withdrawal of all complaints filed with federal agencies, execution of a non-disclosure agreement, destruction of all data related to North Pine operations. This offer expires in 30 minutes. I stared at the number, $5 million. It was enough to save the firm. It was enough to buy a building. It was enough to pay Avery and Mara for the rest of their lives. It was enough to retire Gordon. All I had to do was bury the truth. All I had to do was become Hollis and Crown. The judge was still talking. I am going to take a 15-minute recess to draft the order. He said, Court is in recess. The gavel banged. I grabbed the phone and walked out of the courtroom. The hallway was cold and empty. I walked to the window. Below, the city traffic crawled through the rain. I looked at the email again. $5 million. It was the easy way out. It was the smart business move. Gordon would tell me to take it. Trevor would take it in a heartbeat. I could take the money, rebrand the firm, and do good work for the next 20 years. I could help hundreds of people with that money. But I would know. I would know that I sold out a town with poisoned water to buy new furniture. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I needed to ask someone. I called Evelyn. She answered on the first ring. Lucy? The judge is going to freeze the accounts. I said, we are going to die. Mom, breathe, she said. But there is an offer, I said. North Pine just emailed. $5 million. To walk away. To burn the evidence and sign an NDA. There was a silence on the line. That is a lot of money, she said. It saves everything. I said, it saves the firm. It saves Gordon from prison. It saves me. Does it? She asked. I closed my eyes. I don't know what to do. I whispered. Dad would tell me to take it. He would say, it is the only logical move. Forget your father. Evelyn said. Her voice was sharp. Lucy, listen to me. Your whole life, you have been reacting to him. You went to law school to prove him wrong. You started your own firm to show him you didn't need him. You took this case to fight his ghost. You are 33 years old. Stop being Gordon Walker's daughter. Stop being the anti-Gordon. Whatever you choose. Choose it as Lucy, not as his daughter, not as his enemy, just you. Who is Lucy Walker? I lowered the phone. Who was Lucy Walker? Was I the scrappy underdog? Was I the avenger? Was I the girl who just wanted her father to look at her with respect? I looked at my reflection in the window. I saw a woman in a cheap suit who had stood up in a courtroom and cross-examined the man she feared most in the world. I saw a lawyer who had built something from nothing. I looked at the email again. Destruction of all data related to North Pine operations. If I signed this, the kids in the neighborhood near the reservoir would keep getting sick, and I would have a very nice office to sit in while it happened. I realized then that my father was right about one thing. The law was a machine, but he was wrong about what fueled it. It wasn't money. It wasn't control. It was the people who refused to get out of the way. I typed my reply. It was 2 words. Offer rejected. I hit send. I took a deep breath. The air in the hallway tasted like floor wax and rain, but to me, it tasted like oxygen. I turned around. Gordon was standing there. He had followed me out. He saw the phone in my hand. He saw the look on my face. They offered a settlement. Didn't they? He asked. Yes, I said. A lot? $5 million? He let out a long, low whistle. That is life-changing money. Lucy. It is. I said, did you take it? I looked at him. For the first time, I didn't see the giant. I didn't see the monster. I just saw an old man in a suit who was tired of running. No, I said. He looked at me. He didn't scoff. He didn't argue. He just nodded. Good, he said. Why is it good? I asked. We are about to be bankrupt. Because, he said, straightening his tie, if you had taken it, you would have been just like me, and the world already has one Gordon Walker. It doesn't need another. He held out his hand. Ready to go back in? I looked at his hand. The tremor was gone. I took it. I am ready, I said. We walked back toward the double doors of courtroom 3B. I didn't know how we would pay the rent on Monday. I didn't know if I would have a license next month. I didn't know if we would win. But as I pushed open the doors, I knew exactly who I was. My name is Lucy Walker. I am a real lawyer, and I was just getting started. Thank you for listening to this story. It has been a journey through the tangled web of family, law, and the hard choices that define who we are. I would love to hear your thoughts on Lucy's decision. Would you have taken the $5 million? Or was the truth worth the risk? Please leave a comment below and let me know where you are listening from. I am always amazed to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. We have many more tales of justice, betrayal, and redemption coming your way. Share your thoughts in English in the comments section. Until next time.